All right, guys, let me go ahead and start sharing my screen here so we can go ahead and get started with the how to use net listings training. All righty, let me go ahead and get the presentation started. Guys, this is part of one of our training programs, but it's also one of our free membership trainings we usually give out whenever you sign up or become a member of our association. This is a great tool that I think that a lot of brokers really don't teach upon or even talk about. But it's one of the most interesting things whenever I got into real estate that I saw that was totally different, at least from any other state, which is net listings. Whenever I was reading about the different kinds of listings, I saw and I noticed that in Texas, and only in Texas, are we allowed to use a net listing agreement. So I thought that that would be kind of interesting to touch upon because net listings is similar to wholesaling in the investment world. And I saw this and I was like, wow, this is something that real estate agents can actually use, and it's promulgated by Trek. So, guys, let me go ahead and get started with our actual presentation. What we're going to go through is the 5 steps to a net listing. First is getting the owner approval, basically getting into the owner, talking with him about what a net listing is, conversating and negotiating with them, and evaluating whether or not he is going to be the right fit for this kind of listing agreement, and evaluating the deal, making sure that the property will also fit this kind of listing agreement as well. Next, we're going to go over writing the listing agreement, which I'll share with you in a little bit about what to actually fill in the listing agreement itself, the required information from Trek to disclose and talk about with the seller, and then also sealing the deal, making sure that you get the deal under contract and everything starts moving forward. So, guys, let's go ahead and get started. First thing to talk about is the owner approval. Guys, this is when the owner is giving you kind of some pushback against your commission. I'll tell you, a lot of the times, what you're looking for whenever you're looking for a type of net listing deal or transaction, a lot of times the seller's pretty darn motivated. There's something that's causing them to want to sell for maybe a reduced price or a smaller price with the ability to be able to sell faster. This is when the owner, and sometimes is when the owner is giving you pushback about your commission, because you may say, well, the house is worth this price, or I think that's what we should list it for, and the seller might be giving you a kickback about your commission. And so this is the kind of the opportunity to say, well, there's other opportunities or other ways that we can list your house instead of just paying out a straight commission. We can do it as a net listing agreement, because in a net listing, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a bump from 3% or 6% of what you typically get. There is that risk factor of not getting anything and getting an offer lower than what the seller even wants to net. So just and that's kind of what we're going to go over next. But just to kind of let you know, that's what you're going to be looking at as far as an owner whenever they give you a kickback about your commission. Um, Traditionally, they're probably not going to be the ones that want to list traditionally. They may give you some pushback about even listing the property itself. So that's kind of when you need to kind of evaluate to see if this would be a good option for them, and maybe tell them a little bit about the listing agreement and see if it might fit them best. And really, these are used best whenever a seller needs to sell quickly, or property needs a lot of repair, or the seller's distressed either financially or something in their life, like a divorce is happening and they need to get out of the house. This is when this type of listing agreement really comes into play. Um, Evaluating the property, making sure that there's room for what the seller wants. Now, this is a big thing, because I'll tell you one thing: if the seller's wanting $200,000 and the property is maybe in disrepair, or I'm sorry, let me back up. The seller's wanting to net $200,000, and the property is in need in repair, needs to sell quickly, needs to be able to move. And let's say home's really over there, only selling for the 215, maybe 220 range. Um, if you are a buyer, you need to evaluate and make sure that, hey, if this seller, if we tell him he's going to net 200 and we only get a $205,000 offer, and you're offering a 3% commission to the other realtor, you can kind of see how that might not work out really well. So just to kind of let y'all know, too, on a listing agreement like this, the net listing is basically the difference between the price that the seller wants to actually net, and that's before closing costs, and the difference between what you're going to pay out for co-brokering the deal, and then the net after that is going to be your commission. So make sure that there's some wiggle room for a lower offer that might come in lower than list, and always price it accordingly as far as what the property condition is, what it would look like on the marketplace, what you think it will sell fast. This is a way to kind of test the market too and see if they're willing to make an offer based upon what the seller is looking to net as well. Sometimes there might be a large difference between what the seller needs to net and wants to walk away with and what the maybe market value is. But that's something for the seller to decide and evaluate if that's the reason that they want to be able to sell for that price to be able to move along. Make sure the seller is fully aware of how the listing operates, which we'll kind of go into a little more detail about the requirements, and make sure the property fits this kind of criteria. This approach works really well with like investment type property. Traditionally, when you're listing a house in the marketplace, most of the time, especially in the higher end market, you're going to have more conventional type buyers or buyers who are going to go out and get loans. Sometimes this doesn't fit the seller's needs or wants because they're typically in this kind of a situation wanting to move very quickly, and so it's kind of difficult sometimes for them to be able to sell at a much higher price or market value price. So really, this is kind of approach for most of the time investment type property. Now I want to go into actually writing the contract, and let me take a step back. Oops. Let me exit out of here. All righty. I want to bring y'all to the Zip Forms program, and I want to show you a little bit about how I actually fill out the listing side of a net listing using your TAR forms. What I did is if you go into a residential listing, exclusive right to sell, you'll scroll down to page, I believe this is 2, right under broker compensation. What I typically do is I usually mark number 2 and I say refer to special provisions because you need to sometimes write out some special terms or whatever the seller might want to net, or different kind of agreements or compensations that you might want in the listing agreement. So I usually fill out that number 2 section right here, and then when we scroll down to the special provisions, and guys, this is not filled out because it's just for this purpose only. This is what I put in the special provisions. But this listing agreement is a net listing. Seller agrees to net $200,000. Any offer price above that the seller, let me actually revise that, comma, so it sounds a little better. The seller's agreed upon price will be the broker's commission. Seller agrees to a max commission of $20,000. Now, the reason why I put this is because back in 2012, there was an amendment made to the TREC standards about net listings, and they basically said that you need to have a cap on what the broker's commission can be. So this basically says that if we do get an offer maybe $10,000 over, it's still within range of the net listing. If we get an offer that's $30,000 over, then basically you've done a really good job. You've got your cap on your commission, but you've also got some proceeds or some over proceeds for what the seller was looking for. So that'd be a really, really great situation. But you definitely need to mention a cap on your commission whenever you're going in with this kind of listing agreement. So guys, I'm going to go back to the presentation. And this kind of leads into a little bit of the required information that you're going to need whenever you start putting this listing agreement out there. You can, just so you know, you can market the property just like anything else on MLS, Trulia, Zillow, all the normal places that you market a property. There's nothing really different that you need to disclose. Of course, list any kind of broker's commission on there, any kind of affiliation with the seller, all the typical nuances as far as a typical listing agreement is what you need to do. The only kind of difference is under the listing agreement, the principal must be assured that the price will not be less than desired, and a limit on the broker's compensation. It's kind of what I just spoke about. The only thing is that, and this is very important, whenever you're using a net listing agreement, you need to make sure that that net price for that seller can be met easily, or at least you have a very strong confidence that seller's price will be able to be met without at least you being paid. So, I mean, even at worst case scenario, seller wants to net $200,000, you get a $200,000 offer price, or let's just say a $206,000 offer price. You will be just right there at the cusp of being able to net what the seller wants to. So that's just something you'll have to take into consideration whenever you're listing a property, is that this might give you the opportunity to make more money, but it also may be the opportunity to make you not make any money. So that's where the evaluation of what you can do, or what if this property is doable for what the seller wants. And that's something you'll have to determine within that listing agreement and walking through the home and evaluating the comps. Speaking of comps, the seller must be aware or familiar with the market value. You need to provide some sort of BPO, and you need to negotiate on behalf of the seller when you go into contract. So it's still treated as if you have the seller's best interest in mind. The only thing is that the commission setup is a lot different. So the biggest thing is, providing them a BPO, at least giving them an update on what the market value is, so they are not being felt like they're taken advantage of by an agent. And of course, if you are using this, or sorry, if you're wanting to actually purchase the property yourself, then you need to wear a different hat. You don't need to come into this representing the seller or representing yourself as an agent looking to represent them. You need to represent yourself and to represent yourself as an investor if that's the kind of direction you want to go. But really, what the biggest thing is providing at least a BPO and a market value on their property. And guys, a lot of the times, the reason why we use this listing agreement is because the property generally needs some repair, and we have to sell it at a discount, or at least a smaller discount, to be able to compensate for that price. The last thing we're going to talk about is sealing the deal. So what kind of sellers that we're looking for and what kind of buyers we're looking for to make this deal come together. Kind of what we've been talking about a little bit. The seller, really what you're looking for is some big motivation. You need to find guys that are in some sort of financial problem, some sort of going through a divorce or going through bankruptcy, properties in disrepair. They're behind on taxes. They need to move because of a job, or paying on two different properties. That's some big motivation that makes a seller want to move. And sometimes that will key in for a lower net price that will give you the opportunity to use this kind of agreement to target the right kind of buyer. Typically, sellers have a certain number they want to net. I'll tell you, from doing a lot of investment properties myself, so a lot of the time sellers, they don't want to pay a commission, but they just want to net a certain price. So it's kind of bass backwards as far as what you go into and actually looking at the property. But really, sometimes the sellers just want a bottom dollar price, and that's it. So really kind of evaluate that and see if that works within your number and within that deal. But that's a lot of the times what their main goal is. Knowing what your back-end buyer wants and helping narrow down that price will also kind of help with that listing agreement. And I'll tell you what, we're about to go into the buyer side of this segment, but what it really is if you know that you have buyers for that kind of property, or that you have investors for that kind of property, that will really help narrow down your price, narrow down the timeline. You'll be able to make it a smoother and quicker transaction. And I tell you what, investors move very, very quickly. And so if you already know someone that wants that kind of property, or is within that price range that they're wanting, sometimes it's even best just to bring them with you. That way you can kind of negotiate the deal right there, and put everything together basically on the spot. And so, guys, kind of flipping over to what kind of buyers you're typically looking for. Investors, there's really kind of three different models. There's either, buying and selling the property either through the owner occupant or retail market, or, buying it and selling it as a turnkey investment. Rental property, most investors are, a lot of investors now are looking for rental type properties, or, something that they can buy and hold. And then owner finance, which is where an investor comes in and buys the property, does some repair, and then owner finances that to an owner occupant or retail customer. And so, flip, just kind of give you a little background. Flips typically buy on a loan to value ratio. Most people range in the 70 to 80% of the market value cost minus repairs. And that's kind of what their general rule of thumb, for looking at a property, that's kind of their acquisition model. Rental investors either have a rent ratio they use, cap rate, or preferred return. Depending on the type of property or the asset that you're looking at, that will depend upon what kind of rent ratio, what kind of return, if it's commercial, what kind of cap rate that investor is desiring for that kind of asset. So it kind of just depends on who you're dealing with, what kind of asset it is, and that'll determine what kind of rental type investor you're going to find and what kind of return they're looking for. For owner finance investors, typically they want a certain down payment and a number spread. I'll tell you, most owner financing investors, they really work the marketplace about $150,000 and below. They're typically looking in areas that demand a higher down payment, and they're usually looking for a a certain spread, a number spread, not really a percentage. So most of the time, about 30 to 40,000 dollars in difference between their all-in cost and their resale cost. That's typically going to be what owner finance investors are looking for. And so, guys, that kind of concludes our short presentation on how to use a net listing. I was super intrigued about net listings when I first started in real estate. I felt like this would be something that most brokers don't really touch upon or talk about. I think it would be great training for y'all to go use. Definitely use some of the tips and tricks I just gave you to go ahead and start trying it out on your own. And if you want more information, please remember to visit our website at therealreform.com. And if you have any other additional questions or concerns, or would like to talk to us at our office about some things that we can help you with or other events that we may have, you can always reach out to us. And our office phone is 817-986-0911. Remember, go check us out on the Real Reform, and I hope you guys have a great and blessed day. Thank you.